Welcome to MGT Decklists. My name is Ninong, and this is where I share my favorite homebrews for Magic Arena. Today's deck is called Risky Torbran. I had fun with this build, and I think it might be a good starting point for players who are new to the game. Risky Torbran is mono-red and shines in best of one, where opponents may not be ready for an aggressive, low-curve deck with lots of removal. The object of this deck is to hit hard and fast while trying to build up power with certain set pieces. That being said, let's go to the deck list. Up first in the 1 mana slot, we have 4 copies of Scorch Spitter. In the early game, this creature can quickly get out of hand and deliver a decent amount of damage before an opponent can muster a quick defense. Next, we have 4 copies of Shock, a low-cost removal spell that can throw 2 points of damage straight to the face. At 2 mana, we have 3 copies of Chandra's Pyrohelix. This is a slightly better spell than Shock because the player can opt to split its damage between 2 targets instead of just 1. 4 copies of Electrostatic Field provide decent blockers against smaller threats early on. It can also ping your opponent for an extra point of damage every time you cast an instant or sorcery spell. 2 copies of Embereth Shieldbreaker are included primarily to destroy target artifacts. The 2/1 body is not particularly great, but it is a decent chump blocker and can become useful later on in the game. 1 copy of Fry helps hedge against white or blue bombs, but if your opponents aren't playing these colors, it's still a good card to fuel the jumpstart mechanic. 1 copy of Immolation Shaman pings an opponent whenever they activate a non-mana generating ability of an artifact, creature, or land. The ability to pump its power and toughness makes the Immolation Shaman a relevant threat on the battlefield. 4 copies of Lava Coil do double duty, removing small to medium creature-based threats and ensuring that they will not return. I've included 4 copies of Rimrock Knight for both the combat trick and the 3/1 attacker. The Boulder Rush instant helps deal damage early in the game, but is also great for tricking an opponent into losing an attacker or defender. 4 copies of Scorchmark add more removal to the deck. While this spell may only affect creatures, it also exiles them if they die. At 3 mana, 2 copies of Bonecrusher Giant serve a few purposes. First, the Stomp instant gives more target removal options to the player. Second, the 4/3 body is the strongest creature in the deck. Third, he hurts opponents who try to use magic on him. 4 copies of Risk Factor can help refill your hand or deal damage to your opponent's life total. But unfortunately, the choice of the effect is your opponent's, and you may not always get the outcome you're hoping for. Generally, it is wiser to choose damage over cards, but there is a threshold of discomfort where that decision will change and your opponent will give you cards instead. Regardless of the outcome, the Jumpstart mechanic will allow you to cast Risk Factor a second time from the grave if you discard a card from your hand. 3 copies of Torbran, Thane of Red Fell are included to supercharge all of your red spells. It is the most expensive card in the deck and the best target for removal, but it is well worth the mana. I will go into why later in this video. Rounding off this list are 2 copies of Dwarven Mine, a red land, which spawns a single 1/1 dwarf token if the card's threshold is triggered. Finally, 18 mountains make for a boring but reliable mana source to help fuel your spells quickly. Moving beyond the deck list, how do all these cards work together? Mono-red aggro is a fairly straightforward strategy with aggressive creatures and lots of spell-based removal. Even without Torbran on the field, this deck can win, but when Torbran hits the field, he supercharges every non-land card. His text reads, "If a red source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 2 instead." Effectively, all of your creatures, including Torbran himself, get a plus 2 power boost. All of your instants and sorceries also deal 2 points of extra damage, and all of your deck's triggered abilities will deal 2 extra damage as well. When Torbran and Electrostatic Field are together on the battlefield, a greater synergy is unlocked, and each red spell deals an extra 2 damage, while the Electrostatic Field simultaneously deals 3 points of damage to the opposing player as well. Stomp can deal 3 damage to the opposing player and 4 more damage to any other target, or it could deal a massive 7 damage right to the face for a single red mana. Chandra's Pyrohelix does essentially the same to 1 target, but it becomes much better when it splits its damage between 2 targets. Fry can instantly destroy a planeswalker or a large blue or white creature on the turn it drops, while dealing 3 more damage to the face. Lava Coil can destroy and exile larger creatures and punish the opposing player simultaneously. Scorchmark removes and exiles medium-sized creatures, again dealing 3 additional damage at instant speed. Like Stomp, Shock can also deal up to 7 damage directly to the face. Beyond those obvious examples, other cards open up new avenues for extra damage. Embereth Shieldbreaker's Battle Display sorcery can deliver a nasty 1/2 by destroying an artifact and simultaneously triggering Electrostatic Field to deal 3 points of damage to the face. Rimrock Knight's Boulder Rush can bolster a weak or unblocked attack and deal an unexpected 5 points of additional damage to the opposing player. The best synergy, however, is that of Torbran, Electrostatic Field, and Risk Factor. Merely casting Risk Factor with the other pieces in place delivers 3 points of damage. The opposing player is forced to accept another 6 points of damage or allow you to refill your hand by drawing 3 cards, after which you can activate the jumpstart mechanic of Risk Factor from the graveyard, discard a card, exile that copy of Risk Factor, and force the opponent to take another 3 points of damage and make that same decision again. I will admit that I was not a fan of mono-red aggro before I started playing this deck, but pulling 10 to 15 points of damage out of nowhere for a surprise win is something everyone should experience from time to time. Unfortunately, this deck's time in Standard is just about over, but if you like it or like this video, please press the like button. If you would like to try this deck, I have included a deck list below. Until next time, this is Ninong, signing out. Have fun, everybody!